We at New Mexico Presswomen invite you to participate in our annual communications contest. Submissions are being accepted now through February 10th, 2021. We've prepared this video demonstration to help you navigate through the online submission process. At times, the process can be a bit confusing, and we hope that by watching this video, you will be able to upload your entries expeditiously. You may want to download a PDF of the slides of this demonstration after you watch it, so it'll be a handy review guide so that you can refer to as you actually step through your own submission process. It's probably located on the same page that you went to find this video, or if you found the video somewhere else, here's the link, the address to go to find the PDF. Just one other note before I begin. Throughout the presentation, you will see green arrows like this pointing to places on the screen that I want to draw your attention to. You will see those green arrows in the PDF file as well to help you remember what parts of the page you need to pay attention to. However, when you're actually going through your own submission process, you won't be seeing those green arrows. So just wanted to alert you to that fact. Before you actually start the submission process, I do highly recommend that you take a few preliminary steps to organize yourself so that the submission process will go quickly and smoothly for you. You'll want to figure out what categories in the communications contest you want to enter. There are 61 categories, most of which have multiple subcategories. So it's a very, very broad-based contest, and you'll want to look through that list and descriptions to identify which pieces that you want to submit for this year's contest. I'll show you in a few moments how to find that list. Then once you decide which categories you want to enter and which pieces of your work you want to enter in those categories, I suggest that you collect all of those files together in one folder on your computer so that you can access them quickly and easily during the submission process. Now you'll see that a few categories, not most of them, but a few, require what's called a one-page statement. And as you read through the list descriptions of the various categories, you'll see which ones require a one-page statement, and for each such category, a description of what should be contained in that one-page statement. So if any of the categories you're going to be entering require that, go ahead and prepare it ahead of time as a Word document or as a PDF file, and gather it together with your entries in that master folder so you'll be able to locate it quickly during the submission process. The easiest way to reach the submission page is to go to the National Federation of Presswomen's website, and specifically the page that's labeled Professional Contest. The New Mexico Presswomen's Contest is the first step toward qualification for the national contest. Of course, winning or placing in the state contest is itself quite a laudable accomplishment, and we encourage you to apply at the state level. At the end of the state contest, any entrants whose entry took first place in a particular category will become eligible to move on and compete in the national level contest. So that can bring you even additional prestige. I'd also like to mention that the New Mexico Press Women's Contest is probably the most affordable communications contest around, and I'll show you what the fees are a little bit later. But when you get to this page at the NFPW website, you will, if you'll scroll down, you'll see some brief description of the eligibility requirements. You do not have to be a woman to enter our contest, either at the state level or the national level. The contest is actually administered by the national organization, well, by a company hired by the national organization, so that if you do receive a first place award in any category and you do move on to the national competition, you won't have to do any additional submission work at that point because your entry will already be in their system. You do not have to be a member of New Mexico Press Women or the national organization in order to enter the state contest. However, if you do take a first place award at the state level and want to move on to the national contest, then you will be required at that time to become a member of the national and state organizations. Scrolling a little bit further down that page, here's a general brief description of the 61 categories in this year's competition. They're grouped into sections including writing, editing, photography, graphics and design, radio and television broadcasts, web and social media, including blogs, advertising, communications programs and campaigns, public relations materials, information for the media, speeches, which would be submitting a transcript of your speech, not a recording of it. And there are also categories related to collegiate education that are open to college students to enter. To get a more complete description of those various categories and also descriptions of what types of submissions are appropriate for each category and what the judges look for in judging that particular category, you would click on this link for categories and requirements. And I'm going to take a moment to keep my arrow visible so that I won't be wiggling it across the screen to wake it up. Following that link will take you to this page at the National Federation of Press Women's website, and it has larger, more complete descriptions of the various sections of the contest. The first one being writing, which starts here. General instructions for that particular section of the contest are that an entire article must be submitted for entries published in newspapers or other print or online publications. You would be expected to submit a PDF file or a JPEG image of the scanned tear sheets or printed pages, and they want you to highlight or underline the headline of your article if there's more than one article appearing on that page. If the name and date of the publication will not show on that image or PDF file, then they would like you to write that on the work first and then create the PDF or the image so that that information shows on the file that you submit. If your submission is viewable on the internet, you may submit a URL where they can view it online rather than submitting a file. And I'd also like to point out that an article may be entered only once. For example, if your work was published both online and in print, then you decide whether to enter it in the online category or the print category. Likewise, an article entered as a single feature or news story cannot then be entered in a multi-part category such as in-depth reporting, or vice versa. However, it might be submitted in an editing or design category, so you'll need to read all of the rules rather carefully in order to make sure that what you upload is eligible for competition. Now, when you're ready to actually begin entering, scroll back up to the top of that page, and it says that you can log in, but if you entered last year's contest, it does not seem that it's accepting the same login information that you used last year. So what you will do is go up here to where it says My Account and click on that, and that will take you to a page where you can create a new account. So you'll fill in all of the required information. The membership status here will refer to whether you are a member of New Mexico Presswomen or not, because that affects the fee that you will be charged for each of your entries. Members of the organization get a slight discount on the entry fee. This would be the organization that you work for, your job title, your mailing address, zip code, and then you'll create a password and verify that password. And then you can click the button to register. That brings you to this page, which is a little confusing because it doesn't look like there's anything you can do on that page. But what you need to do is go up to the menu item, Find Your Competition, and click on that. That will take you to a list of the various state contests that are being held as the first step toward the national contest. So you will move, scroll if necessary, and go down that page until you find New Mexico Presswomen and click on that. That will bring you to a page that tells you what the entry fees will be. If you're a member of New Mexico Presswomen, your first entry will cost $25 and each additional entry is $15. That's very, very affordable compared to most other contests. If you are not a member of the state organization, you'll pay a slightly larger fee of $30 for your first entry and $20 for each additional entry. It also summarizes the deadlines for submission. You get a one-time late entry fee is added to entries that come in after the early bird deadline. So even if you submit 5 entries after that deadline, it's still just one $25 fee. But entries will be accepted up to February 10th, and then this gives you an idea of when the judging will be complete at the state and at the national levels. So to actually begin submitting your entry, you'll click on Enter the Professional Contest. Now this brings you back to a page that looks like it's a page you've already filled in. However, if you scroll farther down the page, you'll find that there's now a second half to the page, and that's where you will submit the information about your first entry. The first thing to look for is this box, which you will check if the entrant is the same as the submitter. Now, that means, in my case, for example, I am submitting entries that I created. And so the entries are written by the same person who's doing the submitting. So I would check that box. However, if you are, say, a member of an organization and you are submitting entries created by other people that belong to that organization, then you would not check that box. Your name and information will be in the top half of the page as the submitter, but then you would enter their information in this lower part of the page. Entrant membership status on this page refers to membership in the National Federation of Presswomen. If you are not currently a member, you would select non-member, but then you would also answer the following question, that if you're not a current member and you do take a first place placement in the state level contest, would you then be willing to join the national organization in order to move on to the national competition? Then you would enter the organization that the entrant works for, the job title of that person, and their street address. Scrolling further down on that same page, after entering all of their contact information, you need to select whether there are any co-entrants to add. If more than one person worked on creating that entry that you're about to submit, then you would select yes, and then additional boxes would appear allowing you to enter the information for the co-entrants. If the entry was prepared by only one person, then you would select no, I do not have any co-entrants. Then you would go over here and click Save and Next. That brings you to the page where you actually start submitting the material itself, and you would begin by clicking on this gray down arrow in order to select the main category of your entry. In this example, I'm going to be entering an article that I wrote. So I would click on writing, the writing category, and that writing would then appear in this box. After you've done that, an additional box will appear because there are subcategories within that general writing umbrella. And in my particular case, this is what's called a specialty article. And so I would click that. It will appear in the box above. And then, as you'll see here, I actually completed one additional step because there are even subcategories for the specialty articles, and mine, I selected history. Then once you fill in the required number of boxes up there, then you'll come down to the entry details and enter the title of the work. In my case, this was an article that I wrote. The date that it was published was in a quarterly magazine, so it was the summer of 2020. I guess I failed to mention earlier that this is an annual competition, so anything that is entered in the current contest must have been published or presented or somehow made available to the public during the calendar year 2020. The name of the publication in which my article appeared, or if you're doing a radio or television broadcast entry, then you'd be the station on which it appeared. For some reason, they've given us a second box for the date of publication or production. I'm not sure why, but in this box, you type in the information. In this box, when you click on the box, a little calendar pops up and you select a date from the calendar. Then you need to answer the question of whether you're going to be uploading a file of your work or providing a URL to where the work can be seen online. So if you select that you're going to be providing a link to the work online, then a box will appear which gives you a place to paste that link. On the other hand, if you are saying that you're going to upload your work as a file, which is what I did in this particular example, then this option appears. And when you click the Browse button, and you'll see this screen appear on your computer. And if you click in this box, you'll be taken to a place where you can access the files on your own computer. So you would go to the folder on your computer where your files are stored, select the file that you want to upload for this particular contest, click on it, and then come down and click the Open button. Then it looks for a moment like nothing's happening, and then you'll get to a screen where there's a scrolling circle, and that will continue for a little while, and then you'll be back on this page again and see that the material that you uploaded is in fact there. If you are entering a category that requires a one-page statement, you would go down to the lower section of the page where there's the opportunity to upload additional files. And you would upload your one-page statement in the very same type of process that we just went through. In some categories, you have to submit multiple articles, multiple pieces of work. For example, ongoing coverage of some major news event that they might want to have submissions of several articles that you wrote related to that particular topic. In that case, you would also submit those under this additional file upload section. Scrolling on down, once you've completed all of that, scrolling on down to the bottom of the page, you would then click on Add to Cart. That brings you to the page where you can see that your first entry has been completely submitted, although it's not fully submitted until you actually pay for the submission. At this point, since you have not paid and completely submitted it, you can remove it if you've changed your mind about entering it. You can select it and edit any parts of your information that you submitted as part of the entry submission. And then if you have additional categories that you want to enter or additional entries in that same category, then you would come and click on Make Another Submission. And then you would just cycle back through the process we just went through that I demonstrated my first submission with. And you'll notice that each of the slides is numbered in the lower right-hand corner, and so that repetition would be slides 12 through 25. Finally, I'm skipping ahead now that I've actually gone through and submitted 2 additional entries. In my case, they are in different categories. One of them is in fact a book, and I would like to point out that as I mentioned, all of the submissions are done online. Everything must be submitted in electronic format. You cannot send in a physical copy of a book. So it does not have to be an ebook to be entered, but if it is a physical book, you would submit a PDF file of the complete book. Then on this page, each time you add an additional entry, it will recalculate the amount of money that you're going to be charged. And in this case, since I am a member of New Mexico Press Women, I'm being charged the member price of $25 for the first entry and $15 for each additional entry, so I'm owing a total of $55. You might think that it would be a good idea to print all your applications, and it does sound like a good idea. Unfortunately, the way this button works is that when you click on it, you get a PDF file that is not formatted in a very efficient way, and it takes many pages to summarize every bit of information that you submitted for each entry. So it's not the most efficient way to keep track of what your entries are. but I'll show you more about that in a moment. But then if you're finished submitting entries, at least for now, you can go ahead and click on Checkout. And then you get to the place where you can enter your credit card information and pay the fee that's been calculated for your total entries at this point. Once you've entered all that information, you click on Process, and then it brings you up with a screen showing that you now owe a total of 0 because you have paid for all the entries that you have submitted. These entries are now fully submitted, and you cannot now go in and modify any of them. But you can at this point print an invoice which will contain basically the same information, so it will be a complete record of which pieces you entered in which categories and the amount you were charged for them. Now, even though you can't change any of these admissions and you've already paid your fees, you can still come back, log in later, and submit additional entries if you think of other pieces that you want to submit. In fact, since the work that is eligible has to have been published or presented sometime in the calendar year 2020, anything you do for the rest of November or December is still eligible, and you can come back and submit it at a later time, and you would just go through exactly the same process we've done before of starting by logging in with your new account information that you created and enter your additional entries, and then you can pay for them. And once you're finished, you can log out. You can log out anytime during the process and then log back in to add more entries. So if you're going to enter 5 pieces of work and you only have time today to enter 2 of them, that's fine. You just log off and then come back another day, log back in, and submit the other 3 entries or whatever it may be. And as I said, you can continue to revise them up until the point you pay for their entries, and then they are fully submitted. Again, you can download a PDF of these slides to remind you of what I've described to you in this process today. And if you want to print those off and have them handy while you're going through the process, it might help you remember what to do at some of those somewhat confusing moments. If you have any questions about the contest, about the different categories, about eligibility, about any of the judging process, any of those kinds of things, please contact our state contest chair, Carolyn Carlson, at this email address. Very easy to remember, contest@newmexicopresswomen.org. I created this demonstration video and its associated PDF file. My name's Loretta Hall. I'm treasurer of the state organization right now. And if you have specific questions that you didn't understand something in the submission process that as I've described it to you, you can certainly contact Carolyn, or you can contact me at treasurer@newmexicopresswomen.org. We wish you the best of luck. This is an exciting opportunity to get recognition for your hard work during the year. New Mexico Presswomen Contest is a prestigious contest. It is well respected. The judges are highly qualified. And if you place in the state contest, it is a positive thing that you can list on your resume. And as I say, you then have the opportunity, if you place first, to go on to the national competition, and certainly if you place there, it's an even bigger feather in your cap. So we wish you well. We are happy to respond to any questions that you might have. So good luck.